Morning, everyone. We'll call to order the November 18th meeting of the Madison County Board of Commissioners. My name is Chris Wallace. Everybody please introduce themselves for the record.
Tony Sinovitz, Brandon Shane, Rob Slane, Nick Atkins, prosecutor, Don Sweeney, your sheriff.
Rhonda Maynard, assistant clerk.
Kevin Weaver with the Engineer's Office.
Amy Reese, clerk.
Everyone should have received a copy of the meeting minutes from the November 12th meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
First and a second, any other discussion? None, roll call please.
Mr. Shea?
Yes.
Dr. Maynard?
Yes.
Yes. Would you like to get us started this morning?
Well, good morning, everyone. I guess I want to apologize for missing last week's meeting. With the Sandusky at the annual sheriff's conference. Went very well. I had a couple employees up there with us. I don't have any items of business for your honorable board this morning. As you will notice that we are into no shave November. The sheriff's office, trying to support my staff that wants to participate in the ISEP program. We do take the money that we raise for the No Shave November and we give that to Job and Family Services used for their Christmas activities to so it creates a nice little donation for that. But not shave for a short period of time. Another item to cover was to remind everyone that we now have our mental health responder up and running. She is signed with Sergeant Gibson right now in the sheriff's office, and until we get her a vehicle and get her acclimated, she'll be kind of riding along with the deputies and responding. I understand it's been received very well. Obviously, our crashes are up a little bit in the past week. So as the weather turns bad on us, everyone be prepared and make sure that they take that extra caution when driving. So I'm sure that we're going to see our numbers go up a little bit with traffic and with inclement weather coming in. As always, I'll do my due diligence to watch the weather and make sure we're get those advisories out. And the last thing I want to mention is that, you know, I'm aware that we were awarded $3.5 million for our new sheriff's office. I'm very grateful that we've received that money, but that really helps our program to prepare to move forward. And I want to thank everyone involved for working on that and being a little light at the end of the tunnel. That's all I have from the sheriff's office side. Unless you has anything.
No, we don't. The only thing is we don't know when we're gonna receive that, which I was hoping that would at least give some sort of an idea, like, can we break ground by the spring, and they really wouldn't commit to that. So we'll just see what happens. And then I had a question for you on the vehicle. Are you gonna buy a vehicle then for the, what was it, the mental health office?
I think that those funds are, those funds are, they're fine.
I got you.
I
didn't know if it fell within some of the opioid dollar requirements, so that if we couldn't purchase out of, or maybe partially purchase from that pot, because there's another loose lawsuit that just went through, so that number is very.
I guess my question, maybe we need to talk about it then, are the one, does that program need an evidence-based program to meet the requirements for the fund, or have they changed and became a little bit more open with what you can spend those funds on, because, you know, those funds are pretty restrictive.
Yeah.
What you can spend those on. So we have to look into it.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's a surplus sitting there that
I know.
that fits. It might be a good use of that dollars.
Yeah, the requirements, systems.
It is difficult. It's a small enough amount that there's not much you can do with it, but it's a large enough amount. It's like,
Surely there's some form of evidence that in that aspect of mental health, that counseling helps.
Well,
That restriction really applies more to training programs. There are a lot of other exceptions.
yeah, that's a
Program
good.
would probably meet my, I think my bigger concern would be whether or not it would qualify considering it's not technically a sheriff's office program, right?
Right, we just support it, right? We
You have an MOU with mental health
With mental health.
recovery, so we would have to look to whether those funds would go to the mental health recovery board and then be part of that program.
I think they
Oh,
will.
certainly.
Yeah, and so.
Yeah, I mean, the sheriff's office is just some entity that we designated with the data program and stuff that applies, but yeah.
This is really a mental health recovery board program, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that,
Yeah.
it may very well fit the bill.
I'm probably.
On the requisite recovery.
I know, I'm gonna have to try to buy vehicle out of this soon because her car, or their program car is getting up there.
Prevention and rehabilitation and recovery, and it's kind of the overarching.
Right. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. That's good. That's just a bring up. That's a good bring up and we'll look at it. And I think the only thing we're really providing for is one helping, Sergeant Gibson does, had put some time in, put the program together that was reimbursable for some of his time. And then, what we let him use an office over the EMA, so that they'll have an office. I said, that's just the first employee, and they'll have another one come in, so that we try to capture the majority of the shifts, when we're responding. Yeah, good point. So we'll look into that. Thank you.
Yep, I think it makes sense to look into that. Could be worth time. Mr. Atkins?
Couple of things to update your board on. First, on Friday, had the oral arguments on the appeal of the decision to deny the annexation by the city of Dublin. The arguments lasted about an hour. They went well. They were really focused on a single issue. The judge pressed both sides to focus in on what he identified as the key question, and I actually agree with the focus that the judge had. In the briefs, I felt like the appellate's arguments were fairly broad, so I was prepared to argue a lot of what they had presented, but in the moment, scrapped a couple pages of notes just because the judge cut right to that central question. And that's really looking at whether the decision of your board to deny was supported by the preponderance of the substantial, reliable, and probative evidence. The appellate had argued that the decision was arbitrary, that it was capricious, that it was predetermined, and all of those arguments kind of went to the side, and we focused on whether there was a preponderance of the evidence. And so on their side, the judge pressed them on the fact that at no point during any of the testimony of any employee for the city of Dublin did they even mention the word train tracks. I mean, they do not address the issue at all. And so there are these blanket statements of, yes, we can provide the necessary services, but then do not address the fact that there's a specific concern that would be an impediment to be able to provide those. Then on the flip side, in questioning the appellate, the judge said, well, you have statements regarding this obstacle. These statements are not explored, right? It is a statement by Chief Adams. There are no follow-up questions. There is no detail presented regarding the frequency of the use of the tracks and how likely it would be that the train would be traversing the tracks at the same time that there was an emergency, and therefore it would be an obstacle to providing those services. So the central issue is there a preponderance of the evidence on this one issue? The judge had a couple of different options as to how to proceed. He is limited, though, by the statutory framework as to what he can do. And really, it limits him to making a decision. One of the things that was explored on the record is the ability for the court to remand the case back to your board and require you to do or have additional testimony, and essentially expand the hearing to allow you to make a more informed decision because you'd have additional information. I do not believe that the statute would allow the court to do that. The language within the statute says that the court can remand the cause to the officer or body appealed from with instructions to enter an order, adjudication, or decision consistent with the findings or opinions of the court. So essentially, it allows the court to say, this is what I believe the correct decision is. I'm remanding to your board just to pass a resolution adopting what I'm saying, not to have additional testimony to then decide whether you're sticking with your decision or changing it. And so when the court suggested that as an option, appellate was in favor of it, the city of Dublin, that idea, I opposed it. And the reason is that I didn't want you to be in a position where you would essentially give the appellate two bites at the apple. You could easily be in a situation where it's remanded, you have additional testimony, you uphold your decision to deny, it goes to common pleas upholds the decision to deny, and then it's appealed to the 12th district, and the argument of the city of Dublin is you should have never remanded for additional testimony. So it really didn't make sense to support that position, and again, I think the statute was not anyway. The court took the case under advisement, so at some point the court would issue a decision. My guess would be it would just be on the merits of the case and either uphold the decision or overturn the decision. But the remand is also a possibility. The court indicated they're going to do more research on the issue. Evidently, they had found some slip opinions, which is essentially just commentary on cases that would potentially allow for a remand. My take on those slip opinions were that perhaps it's been done before, but just not challenged. And if it were challenged, probably would be unsuccessful.
If the court says that it's okay to happen, can we appeal it?
Yes.
So it's the same way as the court said no. they
Yes.
appeal it.
Yes, but I would let you know that your basis for the appeal becomes narrower at every level. So at the appellate level, if let's say the court overturns the decision, and we go to the 12th district for appeal, they're not going back to look at whether your decision was appropriate. They're looking at whether the common pleas decision was appropriate, and really that's, did the court confine themselves to what they're supposed to do under the statute? So if Judge Costello were to say, I don't believe there's a preponderance of the evidence, they're not really doing a de novo review where they're going back and looking at the facts. It's unlikely if we're successful at that level. It's possible.
How long does an appeal usually take before the court hears it? The 12th.
You're the 12th district? 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's to go through the process where the parties file their briefs as well. So you have to first create the record, get all the transcripts, file those with the court. Then there's a scheduling order. Both sides prepare their briefs. There's an initial brief, a response, and then a reply to the response. And then it's slated for typically oral arguments. And then after oral arguments, the court will issue a decision. Now, as for a timeline for when common pleas would make their decision, there really isn't a framework. I don't know what that would look like.
Is there cases like this, obviously in the past, that are similar? Or?
Well, the two cases that I heavily relied on, one was out of the 2nd district, one was out of the 6th. And it was in the brief, and I provided that to you, but one was specifically a railroad track. That was an same kind of thing, an obstacle to providing emergency services. The other was a river that kind of dissected the municipality from the territory to be annexed that would occasionally flood, and then flood over the bridge that would allow access. Mm-hmm. So very similar situations. Now that case involving the railroad track was out of Lucas County, and there was a lot of testimony regarding the actual use of the railroad track. So the record was, there was a lot more information on the record for the court to be able to base its decision and finders and findings of the evidence. Now, as for the case involving the river, that was not the case. And really, the problem with that case was that it was impossible to try to anticipate or estimate when the river would flood. I mean, you can look at historical data, but I think there's no way of knowing.
Does, mutual aid ever come into play?
It did, and I will say that the case involving the river was specifically addressed. And the court said, two things. One, that mutual aid is not the municipality itself providing the services, and that's a statutory requirement that they're supposed to provide the service. And it's kind of counterintuitive. Mutual aid is used all the time, but annexation, it's favored under law, but it's still a right under the law. You're not guaranteed annexation, so you still have to meet the statutory requirements. So even though other municipalities do that to better their services, that doesn't mean that that's a basis to meet the requirement. It also went on to say that in those moments when there is an emergency and perhaps the river or train track is providing an obstacle, those residents shouldn't have to fear or have concern as to whether mutual aid will actually, respond. And, the trend right now is that mutual aid is more voluntary than aid. The days of like the MOU being signed between districts is kind of gone. I mean, I've talked recently with Chief Bennington, and he has no MOUs in place for mutual aid. They just respond to the neighboring districts when they do. So that it was addressed, but I think the case law is in our favor. Before I move on, any other questions about the appeal? Okay. I did recently hire a new assistant prosecuting attorney to replace Ms. Davis. Her name is Kenzie Mueller, and she's started about 3 weeks part-time, just through a training phase, and was just sworn in with the state yesterday. So I anticipate bringing her on full-time now and swearing her in with the county and going through a training process. And I'll make sure I bring her in here and introduce her to your board. But excited to have her on. And then the final thing I wanted to mention is that they're here in the community, the Methodist Church, tomorrow evening, so the 19th at 7 p.m., is hosting a human trafficking panel. There are 2 different speakers that are slated to present. One is Sandra Berkhold, and she's a retired FBI special agent that focused on human trafficking and was involved with NCMEC. And then the other speaker is Trooper Chad Lyons, who's very active within ICAC. So great panel, and would invite everybody to attend if you can.
Very good. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Appreciate it. Engineer's office?
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Ladies. Only thing I have for you today is a title sheet for said plans for a turn lane up on Lafayette Plain City Road. It's one of the ongoing phases of the Madison Methodist development up there. It was in Plain City. So it's part of Plain City, part of county. We entered into a MOU for a traffic impact study a couple of years ago for all the analysis and the turn lane was warranted. So then working with the village and the developer's engineer on developing set plans that would have to be workable. So if I had approved it, maybe to sign it today, but if you could get it on the agenda for next week, I'd appreciate that. I have to show you any more details on it.
Oh, good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Ready? Yeah, the call it. The salary that they're talking about?
She accepted, but we didn't even talk about salary. We just started that, so I think that market wasn't clear.
Yeah, it's like the house has been, everything from logging in to I can use the.
How you doing, Myron?
Good, all right. How are you?
Real good.
You're from the press. It's weird that the computer.
Really was 30 can reach out.
The mail slides. Yeah.
Tim question.
I'll be happy, but you catch me all the way in up there. Okay. So you get the box, we turn. Okay.
We just started.
It's nice.
This morning.
Perfect. Yeah, that was pretty, finished about, yeah, so it's the body. The bit of a family, but. Like, I don't, try to think about doing that. It's a bit.
Why are you pulled out?
That's where I came.
Beautiful tower.
Because. The actual service the same. Basically, that starts. That's interesting. Straws here. Yeah, that's why I was trying to say something. This morning. It's been off, so it was safe. Total cost. I was pretty.